Have you ever witnessed the kind of moment that changes someone's life forever? Picture a busy diner, packed with chatter and the clinking of silverware. A wealthy, impeccably dressed man strides in, exuding confidence. He finishes his meal, tosses $1 onto the table, and casually dismisses the waitress. No one pays much attention, just another rude customer, right? But what if that small tip sparked a chain of events so explosive it'd leave the man himself begging on his knees? Today's story will show you how a hidden secret, $1, and an unexpected dose of karma can turn the world upside down. Lucy wiped her brow and steadied herself against the counter. The Saturday morning rush at the local Denny's had just ended, and her feet were already throbbing. Balancing 2 jobs to support her ailing mother wasn't easy. Sometimes she couldn't help but wonder what would happen if she just left it all behind for a fresh start in a new city. But Lucy pushed that thought away. She had responsibilities, rent to pay, and a mother who depended on her. Even though she was exhausted, she managed a polite smile every time a customer walked in. At 23, Lucy was no stranger to hardship. Her father had left long ago, forcing her to step up as the family's primary caregiver. She'd juggled more responsibilities than most people twice her age. Still, Lucy believed in kindness. She believed that good would return to those who gave it freely. She'd slip an extra pancake to a hungry kid who couldn't afford it, or pour a fresh cup of coffee for an overworked truck driver without charging. She didn't earn much, but her generosity was unstoppable. It was her way of coping with a harsh world that had rarely shown her compassion. That morning, though, something felt off. It began with the man's entrance. He wore a tailored suit, maybe Armani, Lucy guessed. Not that she was an expert, and he radiated an air of self-assured authority. Sharp cheekbones, slicked back hair, expensive watch that glinted under the fluorescent lights. Everyone else in the diner seemed to shrink in his presence. A hush settled near his table as he took a seat by the window, scanning the laminated menu with a barely concealed disdain. Then, without glancing up, he motioned Lucy over with 2 curt taps of his finger. She approached him, notebook in hand. "Good morning, sir. May I get you something to drink?" He barely looked at her. "Coffee," he said. "Black. And bring it quickly. I have a meeting in 30 minutes. His tone was curt, his eyes fixed on the menu. Lucy nodded and hurried to fulfill the request. She had no time to be offended. Demanding customers were simply part of the job. When she returned with a steaming mug, the man glanced at the coffee, then at her. "Your name tag says Lucy. Is that correct?" She smiled, even though his gaze felt more like scrutiny than politeness. "Yes, sir." "Lucy is fine. Are you ready to order?" He gave a single nod. "Egg white omelette, no butter, tomatoes on the side. And keep the coffee hot." "Yes, sir," Lucy replied, diligently writing down each detail. She noticed his watch again, likely worth more than she made in a month, and a twinge of envy flickered in her chest. That watch alone could cover her mother's latest hospital bill. But Lucy fought off the uncharitable thought. She prided herself on providing the same service to every customer, whether they were wealthy or broke. She took the order to the kitchen and found her manager, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, eyeing her warily. Patricia had worked at this diner for over 2 decades and had seen customers of all stripes. "Better keep him happy," Patricia warned. "He looks like the type to complain about everything." Lucy nodded, grabbing a fresh pot of coffee. The man's order emerged quickly, and she delivered it with a practiced grace. He glanced at the plate, but said nothing. Instead, he pulled out his phone, stabbing at the screen with purposeful jabs of his finger. Lucy hovered nearby, unsure if he needed anything else, but he waved her off. For the next 15 minutes, the man alternated between nibbling on his omelette, scrolling through his phone, and taking calls that sounded intensely businesslike. Snippets of conversation drifted over: merger, board meeting, profit margins. Lucy surmised. He was some corporate heavyweight, someone used to having entire teams cater to his every whim. Finally, he finished, and set his fork down as Lucy approached with the check. Before she could speak, he shot a critical glance at the table. "You took too long refilling my coffee," he stated flatly, as if reading from an internal list of grievances. Lucy's cheeks heated. "I'm sorry, sir. He cut her off with a dismissive hand. "It's fine. Just ring me up." Lucy took the check and returned with it moments later. The total was $9.50, including tax. She stood by, waiting for him to place his money or card on the little black tray. He removed a crisp $100 bill from his wallet and handed it over. Lucy quietly made change at the register, trying to ignore the knot tightening in her stomach. She wondered if he'd tip at all. When she returned, she placed the change neatly in front of him. He pulled out a single dollar and tossed it on the table. $1 for a meal that cost nearly 10. Then, without a word, he rose, tapped his watch impatiently, and swept out of the diner. Lucy stood there, stunned. She swallowed hard, trying to control the wave of hurt rolling through her. She'd served him to the best of her ability, despite his haughty attitude. A $1 tip felt like a slap in the face. Patricia, who'd been watching from the corner, gave her an apologetic shrug. "Let it go, Lucy. Some people are just rude," but Lucy couldn't let it go. Not because she was angry about the money, though she definitely could have used more than a single dollar, but because of the bigger statement behind it. The man had treated her like she was invisible, or worse, incompetent. The tip felt less like compensation and more like a deliberate brush-off, a power play to remind her how small and inconsequential she seemed in his world. As Lucy cleared the table, she sighed. The day was far from over, and she needed to keep her composure for the lunch rush. That night, Lucy's shift ended at 6, and she rushed to the hospital to visit her mother, Maria. Since Lucy had only a few hours before her second job, a cleaning gig at a local office building, she wanted to make the most of the time. Maria's heart condition had stabilized but required expensive medication. The ongoing hospital bills threatened to overshadow Lucy's monthly expenses. If her mother didn't receive the proper care, Lucy dreaded the potential consequences. When she arrived at the hospital, Lucy found her mother sitting up in bed, flipping through a tattered magazine. Maria smiled the moment she saw her daughter. "Lucy, baby, you're here!" She tried to sound cheerful, but Lucy noticed the shadows under her eyes. Lucy forced a bright grin, stashing her uniform in her purse. "How are you feeling today?" Maria shrugged, setting the magazine aside. "Better, I guess, but they said they might run more tests." Tests meant more expenses. Lucy nodded, throat tight. "Well, that's good. We want to be sure everything's all right." She took her mother's hand, reminding herself that these quiet moments were what mattered. No matter how disrespectful her customers were, no matter how many single-dollar tips she got, Lucy was doing this for her mother. They chatted about everyday things. Maria's new nurse, the kind volunteer who read to the elderly patients down the hall, and Lucy felt her spirits lift just a bit. Then Maria's doctor arrived to discuss next steps. Dr. Kensington explained that more advanced screening would be necessary to determine if Maria needed immediate surgery. Lucy's stomach lurched. Surgery would be a colossal expense. She mustered her politest smile and asked for a cost estimate. The number Dr. Kensington mentioned made her heart pound. She thanked him and retreated into the hallway, pressing her forehead against the cool wall tile. What was she going to do? Back at the diner the next morning, Lucy tried to push her worries aside and focus on her tables. The day unfolded like any other until, around noon, the door swung open and in walked the same man with the tailored suit. He was on his phone, still radiating that air of arrogant detachment. Lucy felt her breath catch. Was he returning to cause more trouble? She considered letting one of her co-workers handle him, but all other servers were swamped, and Patricia was nowhere in sight. Resigning herself, Lucy approached him with her usual courtesy. He recognized her immediately. "You again," he muttered. "Fine, I'll have a seat at the counter. I'm short on time." Lucy nodded. "Of course, sir." He settled onto a stool, eyes already on his phone. Lucy poured coffee, automatically some strange reflex telling her he'd want it again. He didn't protest, so she guessed right. Before she could offer a menu, he mumbled, "2 eggs over easy with wheat toast, like butter." Lucy jotted it down quickly, not wanting to prompt any further complaints. As she walked to the kitchen, she found herself wishing she could say something, anything, about how disrespectful he'd been the day before. But she needed her job. Confrontation could jeopardize her income. So she bit her tongue and continued with her work. When his order was ready, Lucy placed the plate in front of him. He took one glance and rolled his eyes. "I said, light butter. This looks drenched," he growled, flicking the toast with his fork as though it were contaminated. Lucy apologized. "I'm sorry. Let me fix it right away." She took the plate back, politely asked the cook to remake the toast, and returned it promptly. The man's irritation didn't subside. He scarfed down the eggs with a sour grimace, occasionally typing furiously on his phone. Lucy tried to keep a wide berth. It was almost as if he radiated negativity. Every time she approached, his expression made her feel like an inconvenience. Finally, he shoved the plate away. "Check," he snapped. Lucy handed him the bill, $5.75. Without looking, he took out a $10 bill and handed it to her. She returned with his change. Once again, he pulled out exactly $1 from the change, flicked it onto the counter, and strode out. 2 days in a row, 2 insulting tips. Lucy's nerves frayed like rope under too much tension. If he was so wealthy, she wondered, why not leave a proper tip? It wasn't about the money alone. She served plenty of customers who didn't tip well because of their own financial struggles. But he clearly didn't have that problem. This was about sending a message, as though to remind her she was beneath him. In the brief lull after he left, Lucy exhaled. She found Patricia, who raised an eyebrow. "He came back, huh? Some people never change." Lucy forced a half-smile. "Yeah, some people don't." Days turned into a week, and Lucy tried to push the man from her thoughts. She had bigger worries, the looming cost of her mother's hospital stay and the possibility of needing an expensive surgery. Each time Lucy visited, the financial burden pressed more heavily on her chest. She prayed for a miracle, something to save her mother's life without burying them in debt. That miracle arrived in the most unexpected form. On a muggy Thursday afternoon, Lucy noticed a help-wanted flyer taped to the diner's bulletin board, an assistant position at a large corporate office in the city. Her co-worker, Manny, had pinned it up. "They're looking for an administrative assistant, pays decent, health benefits included. I figured someone here might be interested." Lucy's heart fluttered. Health benefits. That could be huge for her mother's treatment. She scanned the flyer's details. The job demanded computer literacy, strong organizational skills, and an ability to work well under pressure. Lucy wasn't sure if she was qualified. She'd never worked in an office before, but she had managed multiple tasks at the diner, juggled 2 jobs, and cared for her mother. If that didn't prove multitasking ability, what would? That evening, Lucy borrowed Manny's laptop to fill out the online application. She spent hours perfecting her resume and writing a cover letter. Even though her experience was mostly in customer service and housekeeping, she emphasized her ability to handle high-stress situations and coordinate schedules. The flyer listed a contact email for scheduling interviews, so Lucy sent her information there. She prayed that a door might open, giving her a chance to earn a better salary and, just maybe, afford her mother's looming medical costs. A week later, Lucy received a surprising phone call. A man with a polished voice introduced himself as the hiring manager for Kingston and Company, the firm advertising the position. He congratulated her on being shortlisted and invited her for an interview. Lucy nearly dropped the phone from excitement. The interview was scheduled for the following Monday at 9 a.m. That weekend, Lucy visited her mother at the hospital, brimming with cautious optimism. "Mum, I have a job interview," she announced, excitement shining in her eyes. "It's for an administrative assistant role at a big company. They provide health insurance. If I get it, we might not have to worry as much about your bills." Maria smiled weakly. "That's wonderful, Lucy. I'm proud of you." Her mother's voice was frail, but the joy in her eyes was genuine. Lucy leaned in and gave her a gentle hug, careful not to disturb the fourth. That moment felt like a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark tunnel. Monday arrived, and Lucy woke before dawn. She rummaged through her small closet for something that resembled business attire. The best she could manage was a plain black skirt that fell just below her knees and a crisp white blouse. She polished her scuffed flats, brushed her hair until it shone, then practiced her best professional smile in the mirror. Heart pounding, she took the bus downtown, carefully checking the directions to Kingston and Company. She arrived 10 minutes early, an old trick her mother had taught her. "Always be punctual, Lucy," Maria used to say, "because it shows respect for other people's time." The sleek glass building towered over Lucy as she stepped inside, greeted by the hum of air conditioning and the distant chatter of professionals. She approached the reception desk, introducing herself. The receptionist guided her to the 14th floor, where the HR department resided. Lucy's nerves fluttered with each step. She reminded herself to breathe, to trust in her abilities. Upon entering the waiting area, Lucy noticed a row of well-dressed applicants. They each held fancy portfolios, exuding confidence she only wished she possessed. But Lucy refused to be intimidated. She was here for her future and for her mother. After a few minutes, a tall woman with short hair and glasses emerged. "Lucy," Lucy nodded, and the woman shook her hand warmly. "I'm Danielle, HR coordinator. Nice to meet you. Let's get started." Danielle led Lucy into a spacious conference room. The interview panel consisted of 2 people, Danielle and a stern-looking older man in a grey suit. His gaze was cool, assessing. Lucy settled into a chair, carefully smoothing her skirt. Danielle began with typical interview questions about Lucy's background, her experience juggling tasks at the diner, her organizational skills. Lucy answered honestly, emphasizing her dedication, her willingness to learn, her ability to stay calm under pressure. The stern man listened quietly, occasionally jotting notes. Then he spoke, his voice low. "Tell me about a time you handled a difficult customer." Lucy's mind immediately jumped to the rude man at the diner who left her those insulting dollar tips, but she hesitated. Should she mention that? She decided it was a relevant example. Dealing with difficult personalities was part of the job. So she described how she maintained patience, apologizing even when the complaint was unjust. She stressed that her goal was always to keep a professional demeanor and ensure the customer's needs were met. The man eyed her for a moment. "You mentioned you do housekeeping as a second job," he said. "Why 2 jobs?" Lucy felt her cheeks color, but forced herself to speak plainly. "My mother is ill and in the hospital. I need the extra income to help pay her bills." For the first time, Lucy caught a flicker of what might have been sympathy in the older man's eyes. Danielle nodded thoughtfully, scribbling notes. "Thank you for your honesty. I can see you have a lot of determination." They wrapped up shortly after. Lucy shook their hands, thanking them for their time, and returned to the hallway, where she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Despite her nerves, she felt the interview had gone as well as she could have hoped. 4 days later, Lucy was in the midst of juggling plates at the diner when her phone vibrated. During a brief lull, she peeked at the screen and saw an unknown number. Her heart jumped. She stepped into the back room to answer. It was Danielle, sounding cheerful. "Lucy, good news. We'd like to offer you the administrative assistant position at Kingston and Company. Are you still interested?" Lucy nearly squealed with delight. "Yes, absolutely. Thank you." They discussed the details: salary, benefits, start date. Lucy's head spun with excitement, relief, and gratitude. She gave 2 weeks' notice at the diner and the cleaning agency that very day. Patricia patted her on the back. "You're a good worker, Lucy. You'll do great in an office. Just don't forget about us little people." Lucy laughed, hugging her manager. The only pang she felt was leaving Manny and a few others who had become like family. But this move was non-negotiable. She had to secure her future and her mother's care. On her first day at Kingston and Company, Lucy stood at the mirrored entrance in her best business outfit, heart hammering with anticipation. She'd studied everything she could about corporate environments, but this was her first actual job in an office setting. She reminded herself she was doing this for a reason larger than any lingering anxiety. Danielle greeted her, introducing Lucy to the department's administrative staff. Their expressions ranged from welcoming to mildly curious. Lucy soon discovered her direct supervisor was not Danielle, but rather the same stern man from the interview, Peter Campbell. He turned out to be meticulously organized, a man who valued efficiency above all else. Though he rarely smiled, Lucy noticed he never raised his voice or belittled anyone. He was demanding but fair. She could live with that. Over the next few weeks, Lucy devoted herself to learning the ropes. She quickly mastered scheduling meetings, organizing files, drafting emails, and handling an array of tasks thrown her way. Though it was stressful, the environment was nowhere near as physically punishing as lugging trays at the diner or scrubbing floors at her cleaning job. The best part? Her new health insurance would kick in after 90 days, offering much-needed financial relief. One afternoon, Lucy was rearranging Mr. Campbell's schedule to accommodate a last-minute board meeting. She typed furiously at her desk, phone tucked between her ear and shoulder. "Yes, I can push Mr. Stone's appointment by an hour," Lucy said into the phone. "No problem. I'll reschedule for—" She paused. "Mr. Stone." She recognized the name. Her heart thudded. Alexander Stone, the voice on the other end, clarified. "He's a major investor, so we need to be careful." Her pulse quickened. Could this be the same man? Alexander Stone was a common enough name, she reasoned, but a memory tugged at her mind. The corporate-like phone calls, the expensive suit, that dismissive attitude. The voice from the other end was referencing a major investor. The rude diner customer had clearly been someone wealthy. Lucy's palms began to sweat. She calmly confirmed the schedule changes and hung up. Even if it was the same person, she told herself, this time she wouldn't be some lowly waitress. She was an assistant at a reputable firm. Maybe he wouldn't even recognize her. Yet, the notion that the arrogant diner customer might appear in her brand-new workplace rattled Lucy. She forced herself to focus. She typed out the updated schedule, emailed confirmations, and tried to dismiss the uneasy feeling. But the looming possibility that Alexander Stone, quite possibly, that Alexander Stone would cross paths with her, made her stomach churn. The day arrived when Mr. Stone was due to visit the office. Lucy had done everything to ensure his meeting with the executive board would proceed smoothly, arranging the conference room, ordering refreshments, preparing a projector for his presentation. She told herself 100 times he might be someone else entirely, but as the elevator doors slid open, her breath caught in her throat. It was him, the same man who'd swept into the diner in his tailored suit, who had left her a measly dollar tip twice. He stepped off the elevator, phone in hand, the echo of his polished shoes filling the lobby. Lucy's face went hot. Could he sense her shock? He crossed the reception area toward her desk, giving a cursory glance at the nameplate that read Lucy Garcia, Administrative Assistant. Lucy braced herself, expecting some sign of recognition, but his expression remained blank, no spark of recollection whatsoever. "Conference room B?" he asked curtly. She managed a calm nod, summoning her professional composure. "Yes, Mr. Stone, right this way." Lucy led him down the corridor, doing her best to keep her posture straight and her emotions under control. He was her company's investor, not a random diner customer. She couldn't afford to risk her job by antagonizing him, yet the memory of his dismissive tone, the $1 tip, still bruised her pride. She struggled to keep her voice even. "If you need anything, please let me know." Mr. Stone gave a perfunctory nod, stepping into the conference room without a backward glance. Lucy exhaled sharply, realizing she'd been holding her breath. For the next hour, Lucy busied herself with tasks at her desk. She heard muffled voices through the door, something about expansion, new markets, synergy. Occasionally, Mr. Campbell poked his head out to request documents or verify details. Lucy delivered each item swiftly. She even poured coffee for the entire meeting, setting cups on a tray, trying to remain unnoticed. Mr. Stone barely glanced at her as she served him. When the meeting concluded, Lucy overheard Mr. Stone say to Mr. Campbell, "Impressive organization. Who handled all these arrangements?" She froze. Was he paying her a compliment indirectly? "Lucy, our new administrative assistant," Mr. Campbell replied. "She's proving quite capable," Mr. Stone murmured. "I see." He walked out moments later, heading straight toward Lucy's desk. Her pulse pounded. He stopped, phone in hand, though for once he wasn't looking at it. "Lucy, is it?" Her eyes snapped up. She locked gazes with him, something she'd rarely been able to do at the diner. "Yes, sir?" He stared, an odd mixture of curiosity and faint puzzlement shadowing his sharp features. It lasted no more than a second, but Lucy felt exposed, as though he might remember. Then he extended his hand. "You run a tight ship around here. Good job." She shook his hand, forcing a polite smile. "Thank you, Mr. Stone." A slight frown appeared on his brow, as if trying to recall something, but he nodded and turned away. Lucy's heart hammered, but she felt a strange pang of satisfaction. She was no longer the invisible waitress he could dismiss with $1 tip. Here she had a title, a desk, and a measure of respect, or so she hoped. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Stone became a more frequent presence at Kingston & Company. The company was in the process of finalizing a major acquisition, and his role as an investor meant he attended regular strategic meetings. Each time he arrived, Lucy greeted him professionally, directing him to the appropriate conference room. He never treated her rudely, but there was a distant aloofness in his manner, as though no one else in the room truly mattered. Yet Lucy couldn't ignore the sense that he found her face oddly familiar. Now and then, she'd catch him glancing her way with a quizzical tilt of his head. Lucy's personal life remained hectic. Her mother's condition had taken a worrying turn, and Lucy found herself shuttling from office to hospital, praying the coverage would kick in soon. One afternoon, she received a frantic call from the hospital, urging her to come immediately. Maria had collapsed. Lucy rushed out of the office, tears burning her eyes. She managed to stammer an explanation to Mr. Campbell, who let her leave without question. When Lucy arrived, she found her mother stabilized but unconscious, an oxygen mask over her face. The doctor said she needed open heart surgery urgently. Lucy's stomach twisted. They scheduled the operation for the following week. Despite her new insurance, the out-of-pocket costs would be astronomical. Lucy fought back tears, gripping her mother's hand. "I'll find a way," she whispered. "Hang on, Mom." A few days later, Lucy arrived at work with shadows under her eyes. She'd spent most of the weekend at the hospital, forging ahead on minimal sleep. But her tasks at Kingston & Company waited for no one. That morning, Mr. Campbell informed her that Mr. Stone needed a set of documents regarding the merger. "He's in a hurry," Mr. Campbell said, as usual. "Can you deliver them to him at his house?" Lucy's eyes widened. "His house, sir?" Mr. Campbell sighed. He's recovering from a minor procedure, some outpatient surgery. Doesn't want to commute to the office. He specifically requested the documents be hand-delivered. You'll take a company car to his address. If it's too much, let me know, but he insisted you do it because you know the files best. Lucy bit her lip. She had no desire to be alone with this man. Still, she had to do what the job required. I'll do it, she said, gathering the thick binder and transferring relevant files onto a flash drive. The driver arrived shortly, and Lucy found herself traveling to Mr. Stone's opulent address, an upscale neighborhood dotted with mansions behind tall iron gates. Her heart drummed as she walked up the stone steps to the front door of a palatial estate. A well-dressed butler greeted her. She explained her purpose, and the butler escorted her to a luxurious sitting room. The plush furniture, tasteful artwork, and massive windows overlooking manicured gardens took Lucy's breath away. She felt as though she'd stepped into another world. Mr. Stone appeared from an adjacent hallway, walking slowly, a bandage peeking out from under his tailored shirt collar. He offered her a brief nod, gesturing toward a leather sofa. Sit. Lucy complied, placing the binder on a glass coffee table. Mr. Stone, I have all the documents you requested. There's also a digital copy on this drive. He nodded, lowering himself into an armchair with a slight grimace. Good. Then he studied her face more intently than ever before. She tried to remain calm, but her nerves prickled. Finally, he spoke in a low voice. Have we met before? The question hung in the air, taut as a violin string. Lucy felt heat creep up her neck. She weighed her response. If she told the truth, it might embarrass him or cost her job. But something inside her, a small voice demanding self-respect, refused to lie outright. She cleared her throat. Yes, Mr. Stone. I used to be a waitress at Denny's. You were a customer there. Surprise flickered across his features, followed by something that looked like discomfort. I see, he said slowly. I didn't realize. He rubbed his temple, appearing genuinely uneasy. An awkward silence filled the space. Lucy decided to add no further detail. She'd done nothing wrong. He was the one who had belittled her with that meager tip. He forced a cough. Well, I suppose that's in the past now. Then, abruptly changing the subject, he opened the binder, flipping through documents. Lucy stood, preparing to leave. Wait, he said, glancing up. I may have a few questions. Lucy sat down again, guiding him through the complexities of the acquisition documents. She explained the timelines, key stakeholders, and projected outcomes. As she spoke, he grew more attentive, nodding at certain points. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Despite her earlier anxiety, Lucy found it surprisingly easy to discuss business with him. She'd been organizing these files for weeks. When they finished, he closed the binder, regarding her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You've been thorough, he said quietly. I appreciate your work. Thank you, Mr. Stone. She stood, smoothing her skirt. If there's nothing else, I should return to the office. He paused, leaning forward. Lucy, he began, then hesitated. I might have been rude to you in the past. I apologize if that's the case. I was going through a stressful situation back then. She blinked, momentarily stunned. I appreciate that, Mr. Stone. He inclined his head, clearly not used to apologizing. With a quick nod of dismissal, he turned his attention back to the binder. Lucy left, her emotions roiling. Part of her felt vindicated that he'd acknowledged his behavior, even if it was half-hearted. But another part of her remembered the months of struggle, the heartbreak of her mother's illness, the times she'd felt invisible under customers' cruelty. She wasn't sure a brief apology could erase all that. Still, it was something. 2 days later, Lucy was scrambling to finalize a spreadsheet for Mr. Campbell when her phone buzzed. The hospital again. Her pulse spiked as she answered. The nurse's words were urgent. We need consent forms signed. Your mother's surgery is being moved up. There's a risk of complications. Lucy's world tilted. The nurse insisted Lucy come now. She explained the forms would only take a moment, but they were crucial. Lucy rushed to find Mr. Campbell, explaining the emergency. Thankfully, he let her go, telling her she could finish the spreadsheet from home if needed. Heart hammering, Lucy dashed to the elevator. Just as the doors began to slide closed, a hand darted in, stopping them. Alexander Stone stepped in. Lucy stared at the floor, not wanting to meet his gaze in her frantic state. But he spoke anyway, his tone almost concerned. "Something wrong?" She hesitated. "It's my mother. She's in the hospital. I need to sign some forms. I might not come back today." He gave a curt nod. "I hope she recovers soon," he said. Then he fixed her with an unexpected intensity. "Is it serious?" Lucy swallowed hard, tears burning behind her eyes. "Yes, quite serious." He pressed his lips together. The elevator slid to the lobby. Lucy excused herself, hurrying off. She felt him watch her go. At the hospital, Lucy found her mother, pale and trembling. Maria tried to smile, but the fear shone in her eyes. "It's okay, Lucy," she whispered, voice weak. "Let's sign those forms." Lucy's hands shook as she wrote her name, giving consent for the surgery. She forced a brave face for her mother, promising everything would be all right. But deep inside, Lucy was terrified. How would she pay for the portion insurance wouldn't cover? And what if something went wrong? She stayed by Maria's side through the night, sleeping fitfully in a stiff hospital chair. The next morning, Lucy's phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. She barely managed a croaky hello, bracing herself for more bad news. Instead, she heard a voice she recognized. "Lucy, it's Alexander Stone." She sat up straighter, confused. "Mr. Stone, how did you get my number?" I asked Mr. Campbell. He said, "You're on emergency leave." "How is your mother?" Lucy stared at the floor, inhaling slowly. "The surgery is later today. I'm just waiting." A pause. "Listen, Lucy, I've been thinking about what you told me about your mother's medical bills." He cleared his throat. "I'd like to help." Her eyes widened, shock mingling with a flicker of hope. "That's not necessary, Mr. Stone," she managed, though tears pricked her eyes at the thought of relief. He continued, voice steady. "Let me be clear, I insist. Call it an investment in one of Kingston and Company's most valuable employees." Lucy's mind reeled. She felt a mix of relief, gratitude, and lingering resentment. Why this sudden change of heart? Could it be guilt, pity? She struggled to maintain composure. I appreciate the gesture, but I don't think I can accept. It's too much." He exhaled softly. "Lucy, I once lost someone important to me, my mother, actually because she couldn't afford proper medical care. I was young and couldn't help. I vowed to never let something like that happen again if I could do anything about it. Look, I'm sorry for how I treated you in the past. Let me do this. Let me help your mother." Tears spilled onto her cheeks. She remembered the crisp dollars he'd flicked onto the diner table, how insignificant and insulting it felt. Now he was offering something life-changing. Her pride wrestled with her desperation, but for her mother's sake, she had to set pride aside. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what to say." He murmured a gentle goodbye, promising to contact the hospital's billing department on her behalf. Lucy's hand trembled as she ended the call. A swirl of gratitude and emotional confusion spun inside her. That $1 tip had once made her feel worthless. Now this same man might be her saving grace. When Maria woke from surgery later that day, the doctors announced it went better than expected. The financial coordinator, who'd initially prepared to bombard Lucy with payment estimates, informed her that an anonymous benefactor had already covered the hospital's outstanding balance. Lucy knew who that benefactor was. Relief nearly knocked her to her knees. She sobbed quietly, pressing her forehead to her mother's hand. A week later, Lucy carefully helped her mother settle at home, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Maria was weak but stable, and Lucy arranged for home nursing visits. She returned to work soon afterward, greeted with kindness by her colleagues. They'd heard about her mother's ordeal, but not the identity of her mysterious helper. Lucy didn't volunteer that information. Later that afternoon, Mr. Stone visited the office. He walked in with a stack of documents, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Lucy. She stood, meeting him halfway. He offered a smile, tentative, unpolished. "How's your mother?" Lucy's eyes misted over. "She's home, doing better thanks to you," he nodded. "Glad to hear it." Then he motioned to the documents. "We should finalize these by the end of the week." They walked to her desk, discussing signatures and scheduling. The business talk acted like a barrier, holding back the flood of emotions Lucy felt. But once the work was done, Lucy closed the file and mustered her courage. "Mr. Stone, if there's anything I can do to repay you," he lifted a hand gently. "Stop," he said, voice tinged with vulnerability. "You owe me nothing. If anything, I owe you an apology for how I acted before. I had no right to treat you that way." Lucy considered him, remembering how powerless she'd felt. Seeing him now contrite, human loosened the bitterness in her heart. She gave a small nod. "I accept your apology. Thank you." Something like relief flickered in his eyes, and for the first time she saw Alexander Stone as a person rather than an arrogant monolith of wealth. She noticed the faint tremor in his hand, perhaps from his own medical procedure, and recalled how life could humble anyone, no matter their status. Their uneasy truce took a stunning turn a few weeks later. Lucy was finishing a late assignment at her desk when Mr. Campbell rushed by, face pale. "We need to reschedule the meeting with Mr. Stone," he muttered. "He's run into some trouble." Lucy felt her stomach tighten. "What kind of trouble?" Mr. Campbell lowered his voice. "There's a federal investigation into some of his recent business dealings, alleged insider trading. It could be serious." Lucy swallowed. She recalled overhearing a phone call at the diner long ago, something about a merger and hush-hush negotiations. She never imagined it could be illegal, her heart wrenched. Had he truly done something wrong, or was it a misunderstanding? Days passed, and the media blitz hit full force. News outlets plastered Alexander Stone's face on every financial channel, talking about investigations, possible indictments. Investors panicked. Lucy watched it unfold with mixed emotions, fear for her newfound friend and benefactor, but also the realization that no one, no matter how wealthy, was above consequences. One morning, as Lucy arrived at work, she found Mr. Stone standing in the reception area. He looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes. Tie askew, the usual self-assured arrogance had vanished. He approached Lucy, voice trembling slightly. "Lucy, can I speak with you?" She nodded, guiding him to a quiet corner. She'd never seen him like this, vulnerable and shaken. "They froze my accounts," he said, swallowing hard. "I'm under scrutiny. The lawyers are sorting it out," but he exhaled. "Everything I've built might be gone." Lucy reached out, resting a reassuring hand on his arm. "I'm so sorry." He gave a mirthless chuckle. "You're sorry? I'm the one who left you $1 tip while I was making shady deals. Karma, right?" Lucy shook her head, her chest aching with compassion. "I don't know the truth of these accusations, but I do know you helped save my mother's life when we needed it most. That won't change, regardless of the outcome." His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "It might change everything for me," he whispered. "I could lose everything." He inhaled raggedly. "Lucy, if it comes to it, I just want to say I'm sorry. For everything." In that moment, Lucy realized that true wealth wasn't measured in money alone. The man who once discarded her with $1 tip now stood before her, life unraveling. Despite his power and privilege, he was reduced to a desperate, fearful man. The last vestiges of Lucy's resentment melted away. She gently squeezed his arm. "I believe in second chances," she said softly. He swallowed, nodding gratefully. Moments later, he was called into an impromptu meeting with the senior partners. Lucy watched him walk away, shoulders slumped, carrying the weight of his own misdeeds. Over the following months, the investigation dragged on, revealing irregularities in Stone's dealings. Faced with the threat of prison time, he struck a plea deal, paying hefty fines, relinquishing stakes in several companies, and serving a short house arrest. Kingston and Company ended its contract with him, wary of legal repercussions. The man who once controlled boardrooms with his commanding presence was stripped of his influence. Lucy occasionally received calls from him, checking on her mother's progress. He never asked for anything in return. He didn't mention his legal woes much, other than to say he was handling it. Lucy sensed that his fall from grace was still happening in slow motion. Bank accounts drained, properties sold, lawyers paid. Yet he never expressed regret for helping Lucy. If anything, he seemed grateful it was one good deed he could cling to. A year later, Lucy arrived at her mother's new apartment, modest, but safe and cozy, carrying groceries. Maria had fully recovered, though she remained cautious about overexerting herself. Lucy herself had grown in her role at Kingston and Company, taking on more responsibilities. She was eventually promoted to a junior project coordinator, able to afford decent living arrangements and look after her mother without suffocating debt. Life had stabilized. One afternoon, Lucy left the office for lunch and spotted a figure on the sidewalk. Her heart jolted. Alexander Stone, no longer the commanding executive, sat on a bench, eyes lost in thought. She recognized him, despite the humble attire, no more tailored suits, just a simple collared shirt and slacks. There was a tired sadness in his expression that made her ache. She approached quietly, unsure if he wanted to see anyone from his past. He looked up and blinked in surprise. "Lucy," he said softly. She smiled gently. "It's been a while. How are you?" He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "I'm all right. House arrest ended a month ago." He gave a short laugh. "Not that it matters much. My reputation is shot. No one wants to work with me." Lucy lowered herself onto the bench beside him. She remembered how he'd once glided through life with an air of untouchable certainty. Now he was a man laid bare, stripped of pretense. "I'm sorry," she offered. He studied her, the corner of his mouth curving sadly. "Don't be. I did this to myself. I built my empire on shaky ground. The one decent thing I did was help you and your mother." They sat in contemplative silence, the city's bustle flowing around them. Then he asked, voice quiet, "How's your mother? She's well, healthy, and back on her feet." He nodded, seeming genuinely pleased. "I'm glad." Moments passed. Finally, Lucy spoke, the question burning inside her. "What will you do now?" He shrugged, mouth twisting wryly. "I don't know. I have enough left to get by, but I'll never return to the same status I had. Maybe that's okay. Maybe I'll try something honest this time, if I can find anyone willing to give me a chance." She placed a tentative hand on his shoulder. "People can change. You changed my life for the better when I needed it the most." He turned his gaze to her, and for a moment, his eyes filled with tears. Then, in a gesture Lucy never imagined she'd see, Alexander Stone, the once dominant millionaire, lowered himself off the bench and dropped to his knees right there on the busy sidewalk. Startled onlookers paused. Lucy's eyes widened, quickly reaching to help him up. "Mr. Stone, what are you?" He grabbed her hands, voice thick with emotion. "I'm thanking you," he said brokenly. "Thanking you for forgiving me, for reminding me that no one is beyond redemption. Even if the world hates me, you showed me a kindness I never deserved." Tears sprang to Lucy's eyes. She helped him stand, her face flooding with color at the spectacle, but inside her heart brimmed with compassion. She embraced him gently, ignoring the curious stares of strangers. "It's okay," she whispered. In that moment, Lucy realized that wealth, status, and outward appearances could vanish in an instant. Genuine humility, gratitude, and kindness, those qualities transcended temporary fortunes. She guided him back onto the bench, both of them a bit shaken by the emotional display. He wiped his eyes, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen. "Thank you," he repeated softly, "for giving me hope." Lucy smiled through tears. "Thank you for saving my mother's life. I'll never forget it." And there, among the bustling city crowd, they found a quiet sort of peace. Two people whose paths collided through cruelty, necessity, and, ultimately, compassion. And there you have it, the incredible journey of how a $1 tip set off a chain reaction of twists, heartbreak, and unexpected redemption. Lucy, a determined daughter, fighting for her mother's life, and Alexander Stone, a self-assured millionaire, humbled by his mistakes, found each other in the unlikeliest of ways. This story reminds us that every small action can have a massive impact. Sometimes our cruelest moments catch up to us in surprising ways, and the kindness we show might be the only light guiding us back from the darkness. If you enjoyed this powerful tale of karma, second chances, and the indomitable human spirit, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs inspiration today, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove compassion and forgiveness can reshape our world. Thank you for watching.